Somewhere in your neighborhood, there's a plant that hasn't been touched in years. No replanting, no new seeds, no one watering it on a schedule, and every single season it produces food anyway. Most people walk right past it. Here's the problem with the way most backyard gardens work. You plant in spring, you harvest in summer, and by fall it's all gone. Next year you buy more seeds, prep the soil again, and wait again. That cycle feels productive. It means you're starting from scratch every single winter. But you've seen the grocery store lately. Those prices aren't resetting. They're only going one way, and it isn't down. There is a category of plant that breaks that cycle completely. You put it in the ground once, it comes back next year without asking. And some of these plants don't just survive. They actually get more productive every season they stay in the ground. More roots, more yield, more food. While everything else in the garden gets replanted, these just keep going. A few of them can outlive a car loan. Some will still be feeding your family 20 years from now. Most lists will have you growing things that look impressive in the garden and barely show up on your dinner plate. The plants worth keeping are a shorter list, and the difference matters. That's what we're going to fix today. Before getting into the plants, there's something worth saying out loud, because it reframes everything else. Most backyard gardens are built around annuals: tomatoes, peppers, zucchini, cucumbers. These are the plants that show up on every seed display, every beginner guide, every spring gardening video, and there's nothing wrong with them. But every single one of them disappears when the season ends. One cycle, and then they're gone. Next year, you start over. We've been conditioned to treat the garden like a subscription. You pay with your labor every April, and you're cut off by November. A job change, a budget crunch, a spring where life just gets in the way, and your food production takes a hit before it even starts. Perennial food plants work differently. They don't reset, they establish. The first year, the roots are going down. The second year, the plant is finding its footing. By year 3, it starts producing in a way a first-year annual simply cannot match. Perennials reduce dependence on seed catalogs, fertilizer schedules, and annual inputs. Every perennial you add to your backyard is one less thing you need to go buy next spring, one less gap in the system. A perennial bed works like infrastructure. The longer it stays in the ground, the more it returns. This is where most backyard systems quietly fail, not in the harvest, but in what gets planted in the first place. Most lists give you 10 plants in alphabetical order and tell you which ones taste good. That's not how a food system works. A backyard that actually feeds a family needs 3 things working at the same time: calorie-dense crops that provide energy, nutrient-dense crops that cover vitamins and minerals, and crops resilient enough to keep producing when conditions aren't perfect. The plants worth putting in the ground permanently are the ones that fill those roles. Let's start with the foundation crops, the ones that actually put food on your plate. This one alone can eliminate a grocery item permanently. Most people already know how to use it. Start with garlic. I haven't bought a bulb of garlic in 5 years. Most people treat it like an annual: plant in fall, harvest in summer, buy new cloves next season. But if you save your best bulbs and replant them every October, the variety slowly selects for your specific soil and climate. Plus, it's like having a natural security system for your garden. It repels pests and improves everything growing around it. For a small backyard, a plant that feeds your family and defends your garden at the same time earns its space twice over. This next one catches almost every first-time grower off guard. Not because it's difficult, but because of how aggressively it works. Then there's the Jerusalem artichoke, the sunchoke. It's a starchy, calorie-dense tuber that fills the role of a potato. But here's what most people don't expect. You plant them once and the patch essentially takes over. And they multiply underground without any help. But be careful. They're like that one cousin who moves into your guest room and never leaves. If you don't give them a dedicated bed with clear boundaries, they'll own your whole yard within a couple of seasons. I learned that the hard way. Give them an edge from day one, and you've got a calorie source that'll outlive your car loan. That's the price of having something this productive. One more thing. Deer, groundhogs, and squirrels all want what you planted. Protect the bed in year 1. Once the patch is dense, it can absorb the losses. Early on, it can't. The second category is nutrition. These are the crops that keep your family healthy, not just full. Most people hear about this plant, think that sounds like a lot of waiting, and move on. That decision costs them 20 years of harvests. Asparagus is the ultimate test of patience. It takes 2 to 3 years before you get a serious harvest, and that waiting period is where most people walk away. What they leave behind is a bed that produces every spring for 30 years. In a food security setup, a crop that delivers in March and April, before anything else in the garden is even awake, arrives exactly when you need it most. It's the first harvest of the year, and it arrives right when store prices for fresh greens start to spike. Practical note: asparagus is a deer's first stop in spring. Protect new beds early. Once the crowns are established, the plant is much harder to lose. In those first 2 years, don't gamble on it. This one follows the same patient logic and covers a gap that most backyard systems leave completely open. Rhubarb. I'll leave it mostly alone for the first couple of seasons, and by year 3 it's producing heavily, keeping that up for 15 to 20 years from a single planting. Like asparagus, it comes up early in spring. 2 crops in March and April before the main garden has started fills a gap most backyard systems leave wide open, the months when store prices tend to spike and home gardens have nothing to offer yet. But calories and nutrition are only 2/3 of the equation. The third part is what most people never think about until a hard season teaches them. This plant has been feeding families for decades in climates most people assume are too harsh for anything worth growing, and almost nobody talks about it. Perennial kale, sometimes called tree collards, standard kale is an annual, and this version develops a woody stem over time and keeps producing leaves for up to 20 years. In mild climates, it produces nearly year-round. In colder zones, it goes dormant and comes back each spring. You harvest from the outside. The plant keeps producing from the center, season after season. The nutrition is there: vitamins A, C, and K, plus calcium and iron. But the bigger point is this: a lot of people building backyard food systems focus entirely on calories and forget nutrition entirely. A system that keeps a family healthy needs both sides of that equation. Perennial kale covers the nutrient side more reliably than almost anything else that fits in a small backyard. And then there's the category most people underestimate: the crops that are almost impossible to kill. This is the category people underestimate most, and it might be the most important one. Resilience in a food system means the plant comes back after a hard season. It produces even when you didn't give it much attention. It means that when life gets complicated, a job change, a health issue, a season where the garden just didn't get the care it needed, the food is still there. That's not a luxury. That's the whole point of building a system instead of just a garden. This one propagates itself. You don't replant it. It just keeps expanding on its own schedule in its own direction. Egyptian walking onions, a perennial allium that spreads without any help. The clusters at the top of the stalk get heavy, bend toward the ground, take root, and start new plants. The patch grows season after season without you doing anything. For a household that uses onions regularly, which is almost every household, this matters more than it sounds at first. You stop buying onion sets. You stop replanting. The bed expands on its own and you harvest from it continuously through the season. Not dramatic, just reliable in a way that most crops simply aren't. Plant this once and try to get rid of it. Most people can't. Horseradish. Once it's established, it's nearly impossible to stop. Harvest a portion of the root in fall, leave the rest in the ground, and it returns stronger the following spring, cold hardy, drought tolerant, almost zero maintenance after year 1. The compounds that give it its kick also deter pests in surrounding beds, so it earns its space even in the off-season. Give it defined boundaries from the start. The edge you set in year 1 will save you a lot of work later. Growers who've had them for a decade all say the same thing. Get the soil right, leave them alone, and they keep producing. Blueberries. The yield and flavor improve as the plant matures. A well-sited bush can produce for 25 to 30 years. The early work is getting the soil right. Blueberries need acidic conditions. roughly between 4.5 and 5.5 pH, a one-time adjustment. Once the plant is in the right environment, it largely takes care of itself. Plant 2 or 3 varieties for cross-pollination. Most beginner guides skip this detail. It quietly determines whether a blueberry planting underperforms for a decade or produces the way it should. None of these plants are magic on their own, but that's not how they're meant to work. One asparagus bed won't feed a family. A sunchoke patch won't replace the grocery store. Nobody said it would. The point is something different. Each of these plants is a layer of food production that doesn't need rebuilding every spring, that gets stronger every season it stays in the ground. Layers compound in a way a single annual garden never can. A backyard with garlic that self-sustains, a sunchoke patch producing calorie-dense tubers, an asparagus bed delivering in early spring, a walking onion bed that expands on its own, and 2 blueberry bushes that improve with age. That is a fundamentally different system than a backyard with 6 raised beds of tomatoes. Both look productive. One of them resets every winter, the other one just keeps going. A garden that resets every year is not a food system, it's a subscription you pay with your time. A lot of people treat the garden like a project. Something to work on when conditions are perfect and time is available. A perennial system is something else entirely. You build it once, maintain it lightly, and it returns more than it takes every single year. I think about what it means to have a plant in the ground that's been there for 10 years and is still producing. That plant survived seasons you barely gave it a thought. A hard summer, a winter that came early, a year when everything else in the garden struggled. It didn't ask for much. And every spring, without being asked, it came back. A plant that does that, quietly, reliably, season after season, changes the way you think about your backyard, not overnight, but over time. The grocery store will still be there. Prices will keep doing what prices do. But every season that passes with a mature perennial system in your backyard, your dependence on that store gets a little smaller. It won't feel like much at first. But 5 years from now, that bed will still be there, still producing, and you won't have replanted it once. And that plant growing in someone's yard on your street, the one nobody tends, the one most people walk right past, chances are it's one of these. It's been there for years, and it's not going anywhere. Real food security isn't built in a weekend. It's built one plant at a time, left in the ground long enough to do its job. Pick one from each category, get it in the ground this season, and give it time. Drop your zone in the comments. I want to know what you're working with. And if this changed how you see your backyard, subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from, and if you're ready to take the first step, check the first pinned comment. I left a link there that can help you get started.